Hello and welcome to the City of Murfreesboro Employee Alcohol and Drug Awareness Training Session. This video is designed to meet the requirements of the Federal Transit Administration, State of Tennessee, and the City of Murfreesboro. The information in this video will address how the abuse of alcohol and drugs will affect your personal health, personal life, personal safety, job performance, job safety, and work environment. Also, the effects and consequences of prohibited drug and alcohol use will be discussed, along with the signs of alcohol and drug abuse. Let's look at how Americans are consuming more alcohol than ever before. It's important for you to recognize the signs of alcohol and drug abuse and know who to contact if you or others show signs of alcohol and drug abuse in the workplace. The City of Murfreesboro is a certified drug-free workplace, and the goal of the Employee Drug and Alcohol Program is to create a safer working environment by deterring the use of alcohol and drugs in the workplace. The City of Murfreesboro drug-free workplace policy applies when an employee is on duty, in a city uniform, or in a city vehicle. Remember, all city property, including vehicles, desks, containers, files, and lockers, are subject to inspection at any time without notice.
The City of Murfreesboro classifies employees into two categories: safety-sensitive and non-safety-sensitive positions. A safety-sensitive position is a job or position where the employee holding this position has the responsibility for his or her own safety or other people's safety. Pre-employment, post-accident, and random are the types of tests that apply to safety-sensitive employees. Non-safety sensitive positions are positions where job functions do not directly affect his or her safety or other people's safety. The City of Murfreesboro Employee Handbook has 3 sections that thoroughly explain the city's drug and alcohol policy. These policies are in sections 3005, 3006, and 3023 of the Employee Handbook. Policy 3005, which covers the drug use and alcohol misuse and testing policy, states that all safety-sensitive employees are subject to drug and alcohol testing. Failure of a job applicant or employee to comply with a drug and/or alcohol testing request or a positive test may lead to disciplinary action. This policy also states that the City of Murfreesboro reserves the right to use trained dogs and law enforcement personnel to detect prohibited drugs on city property on, in, or under the control of employees. Now we will review the occasions for drug and alcohol testing. The first example is pre-employment drug and alcohol testing. This applies to safety-sensitive employees and is administered during the interviewing and hiring process. with a negative result required before the candidate will be offered a job. Second is reasonable suspicion testing. This applies to all employees, both safety and non-safety sensitive employees. This is performed when a trained supervisor initiates the test due to specific objective observations of physical evidence, suspicious behavior, or an emerging pattern of changed job performance. Remember, under the reasonable suspicion search umbrella, there is no expectation of privacy. This includes office, desk, locker, and other city property under the control of the employee. The employee's personal effects, which include parcels, packages, purses, lunch boxes, and briefcases, also fall under the no expectation of privacy section, as well as the employee's vehicles parked on city property. Another occasion for drug and alcohol testing is post-accident testing, which applies to safety-sensitive employees. This type of testing is required within 8 hours of involvement in an accident for alcohol breath test or within 32 hours for a drug test to prove that an illegal substance did not contribute to the accident. Safety-sensitive employee vehicular post-accident testing is conducted as soon as possible following an on-the-job accident. Employees shall be tested for illegal drug and alcohol use if the employee contributed to the accident or cannot be discounted as a contributing factor, and the accident includes bodily injury where a person immediately receives medical treatment away from the scene of the accident, disabling damage to one or more vehicles, employee receives a citation for a moving violation, there is a fatality, or if the employee requests to be tested. Safety-sensitive employee non-vehicular post-accident testing. As soon as possible following an on-the-job accident, employees shall be tested for illegal drug and alcohol use if the employee contributed to the accident or cannot be discounted as a contributing factor. Any city employee in the accident receives medical attention away from the scene on the day of the accident. The employee requests to be tested. Testing is presumed unless the employee's supervisor determines that the employee's actions could not have contributed to the accident. Non-safety sensitive employees involved in an accident may also be tested for drugs and alcohol pursuant to reasonable suspicion testing. Should an employee refuse to submit to drug or alcohol testing, or if the employee tests positive, workers' compensation benefits may be denied. This can be especially costly for those with families. Another reason for drug and alcohol testing is random testing. Random testing applies to safety-sensitive employees. Employees that are selected for random testing are selected by using a computer-based random number generator at various times throughout the year. Random drug testing takes place just before, during, or just after the employee ceased performing safety-sensitive employee or CDL employee functions. Another example is return-to-duty testing. Return-to-duty testing applies to all employees, both safety and non-safety sensitive. This test is given to those who tested positive for drugs or 0.02 or greater for alcohol, and those who demonstrated problems with use of illegal drugs or alcohol by violating the City of Murfreesboro drug-free workplace policy. This includes those that have completed an employee assistance program for drug and alcohol addiction. After a return-to-duty test, employees must have negative result and must agree to reasonable follow-up testing established by the city and substance abuse professional as set forth in a return-to-duty agreement. Here are a few other reasons for drug and alcohol testing. Drug and alcohol testing applies to safety-sensitive employees in reference to promotions and transfer to safety-sensitive positions. Drug and alcohol testing can also be required for the use and/or possession of firearms. In the event a city employee other than a police officer discharges a firearm while on duty, in city uniform or on city property, or possesses a firearm or other weapon while on duty, in city uniform or on city property, the employee shall be tested for illegal drugs and alcohol. Drug and alcohol testing also covers city employees in the event they are found in possession of alcohol or illegal drugs while on duty, in city uniform, or on city property. And finally, drug and alcohol testing can be required for altercations on the job. An altercation includes any physical fight on duty, in uniform, or on city property. The need for testing is presumed. Any decision not to administer a test must be based on the supervisor's determination, using the best information available at the time the determination is made. However, if a city employee is attacked, engages in self-defense, and did not participate in any way as an aggressor, then this subsection shall have no application. What constitutes a failed test? A positive test for the use of alcohol is listed as above 0.02, which means the employee shall be removed from the job for a minimum of 24 hours. After that, the employee must be retested, and the result must be below 0.02% before returning to duty. Prescription medications, although legal and allowable, must be taken as intended and by the person the prescription was written for originally. Murfreesboro's policy on prescription medication states an employee may use a legally prescribed medication, prescribed to them, that does not impair the ability of the employee to safely and efficiently perform the employee's duties. Medication must not cause the employee to test 0.02 or greater for alcohol. There is no medication exception to alcohol use, resulting in an alcohol concentration of 0.02 or greater. Employees should only use medications that are prescribed to them, not a spouse, child, parent, or friend. When taking prescription medications, verify that the prescription is current. Some prescriptions expire sooner than others. Be sure to read the label. If an employee is criminally charged with an alcohol or drug-related offense, an employee must notify their supervisor within 48 hours. Failure to do so will result in disciplinary action up to and including termination, according to Section 3002 of the Employee Handbook. Also, operators of city vehicles are not allowed to drive a city vehicle until their license has been fully restored. The consequences for violating the drug and alcohol policy and for failing a test will result in disciplinary action, up to and including termination. Murfreesboro has a zero-tolerance policy. Alcohol in the workplace policies include: do not use alcohol for 4 hours before reporting to duty or while on paid call for duty. Do not store alcohol in a locker, desk, city vehicle, or other repository on work premises unless required by the duties of the employee. The exception to this rule is temporary storage of unopened containers of alcohol beverages in a personally owned vehicle. The definition of a drink is 1.5 ounces of 80 proof liquor, 5 ounces of table wine, or a 12-ounce beer. These are all equal to 3/4 of an ounce of pure alcohol. The short-term effects of the use of alcohol are a heightened activity level, loss of inhibition, a jovial and relaxed mood, self-confident or hostile, withdrawn and/or depressed, and with more consumption, impaired thinking, memory, perception, and motor function. The long-term effects of alcohol use can be liver disease, mental degeneration, depression, anxiety, confusion, and persistent slurring, even when sober, impaired perceptual and motor functions, loss of ability to reason, and many medical problems. The warning signs and patterns of alcoholism can vary, but generally follow these stages. In the early stages of alcoholism, the person makes promises to quit but breaks them, must drink more and more to achieve the same effect, and the individual has trouble stopping after the first drink. In the middle stages of alcoholism, the person denies drinking or is a secretive drinker and hides the alcohol, drinks upon waking or has withdrawal symptoms and can't get through the day without a drink, finds it harder and harder to get the same good feeling regardless of how much has been drunk. This is caused by an increased tolerance to alcohol. In the later stages of alcoholism, the person lives to drink. Liquor comes before everything else. Avoids and distrusts people. Loses all ambition. Is unable to cope with any responsibility. Is often absent from work. Never seems to eat. Suffers from malnutrition and the shakes, which is also known as withdrawal. In the final stages of alcoholism, the person hits rock bottom, continues to drink despite painful and detrimental results, such as social and personal ruin, physical disability, and the possibility of death. Remember, the earlier alcoholism is diagnosed and treated, the better the chance for recovery.
Another disturbing trend involving alcohol is binge drinking.
CDC-TV presents Health Matters.
Today, more than half of the alcohol consumed by adults in the U.S. occurs during a pattern of behavior known as binge drinking, a risky behavior that can lead to illness, injury, and even death. The National Institute on Alcohol Abuse and Alcoholism defines binge drinking as consumption that raises blood alcohol content to 0.08%, the cutoff point for driving while impaired in all 50 states.
Binge drinking is an extremely dangerous pattern of alcohol consumption, which is defined as 4 or more drinks per occasion for a woman, 5 or more drinks per occasion for a man.
And we estimate that there are approximately 1.5 billion episodes of binge drinking in the U.S. each year.
Binge drinking literally fuels dangerous behavior. Binge drinkers are 14 times more likely to report driving drunk than non-binge drinkers.
88% of impaired driving events are caused by binge drinkers.
Binge drinking is associated with over half of the 79,000 alcohol attributable deaths that we estimate occur in the United States each year.
Though many doctors consider binge drinking to be a dangerous health behavior, many Americans think that binge drinking is socially acceptable.
Alcohol is the most widely available drug of intoxication in our society.
This dangerous pattern of overconsumption contributes to illness, injury, and death through car crashes, violence, HIV/AIDS, and more.
Binge drinking is also associated with a wide range of health and social problems, including unintended pregnancy, sexually transmitted diseases, interpersonal violence, and the list goes on and on.
The truth is that most binge drinkers are adults who drink too much on occasion.
We estimate that about 70% of the 1.5 billion episodes of binge drinking that occur in the United States each year involve people who are 26 years and older.
The majority of alcohol problems are caused by people who think that they're not problem drinkers.
There's good scientific evidence that over 80% of binge drinkers are not alcohol dependent or alcoholics.
Unlike other high-risk health behaviors, the risk of binge drinking goes up with socioeconomic status.
In fact, binge drinkers most commonly make more than $50,000 a year. Binge drinking is a problem for individuals, but it's a problem that is engendered by community environments that are supportive of this behavior.
We need to implement effective community-based strategies to prevent binge drinking.
The single most effective thing we could do to reduce binge drinking would be to increase alcohol taxes.
So too is reducing the number of places where people can purchase alcohol in a community.
Reducing days and hours of sale is another important strategy.
Communities need to create an environment that discourages underage and binge drinking.
We need to maintain and also enforce the age 21 minimum legal drinking age.
Armed with these strategies, communities can begin to fight back against the proliferation of alcohol outlets, advertising, and drink specials.
We need to denormalize binge drinking as a pattern of alcohol consumption.
It is far too risky and harmful a pattern of drinking.
Binge drinking, it's a clear health threat for the drinker and for society. Be responsible to your family, your community, and yourself. Don't binge drink.
Hello, I'm Sergeant Jason Tiggins with the Murfreesboro Police Department. With over 22 years in law enforcement experience, 16 years as a DUI enforcement officer, and specific training in drug recognition expert, I'd like to speak to you today about some of the effects of certain drugs on the human body. I think first and foremost, for me anyways, would be the odor of alcohol. Slurred speech would probably be right up there after that. Disoriented, unsteady on their feet, unsteady while they're walking. They loss of fine motor skills where they, fumbling fingers, I guess would be a better way to put that maybe. Things like that would be pretty obvious signs that someone's under the influence of alcohol. That depends person to person, honestly, and it also depends on how much alcohol they've had. If they've drank a little, I mean, it may wear off pretty quick. If they've drank a lot, may not. Alcohol dissipates in the system a whole lot slower than it goes in, and it goes down 0.015% an hour in your blood, which again, it kind of varies person to person, depending on their tolerance level. Obviously, they're probably passing out, coma, clammy skin. Their pulse could be up or down depending on, what's going on with them outside of, the alcohol, just their normal physical health kind of stuff too. Someone who is, I guess for lack of better terms, you would consider an alcoholic or someone who has a drinking problem or something like that, they tend to, once they start getting a low BAC or they haven't had anything to drink at all, they start going through a DTs and detox where they may start actually not physically functioning as well as they would normally do if they've had a drink. So you may see them start having tremors or shakes, as we would call them, things like that. They may get irritable and things of that nature.
Now it's time for our first review. Does random testing apply to both safety and non-safety sensitive employees? No, it only applies to safety sensitive employees. Where can you find drug and alcohol policies for the City of Murfreesboro? You received a copy of this policy prior to or during new hire orientation. You can also find a copy of the policy in the Employee Handbook, which can be found on the city's intranet, in Human Resources, and all city departments. Which of the following are short-term effects of alcohol use? A heightened activity level, loss of inhibitions, a jovial and relaxed mood, self-confidence or hostility, being withdrawn and or depressed, impaired thinking, memory, perception, or motor skill function, or all of the above. The answer is all of the above are short-term effects of the use of alcohol. True or false? Under the reasonable suspicion search umbrella, only the city manager and executive directors are exempt from the privacy rule. False. Under the reasonable suspicion search umbrella, there is no expectation of privacy. All city property is subject to inspection at any time without notice. Examples include city vehicles, desks, containers, and files and lockers. City employees are required to notify their supervisor within how many hours if they are charged with an alcohol or drug-related offense? City employees must notify their supervisor within 48 hours of being criminally charged with an alcohol or drug-related offense. Failure to do so can result in disciplinary action up to and including termination. When does the city's drug-free workplace policy apply to an employee? The city's drug-free workplace policy applies when an employee is on duty, in city uniform, or in a city vehicle. Are city employees allowed to drive a city vehicle if their license has been revoked? No. No one can drive a city vehicle until their license has been fully restored. If required, how many hours after an accident must safety-sensitive employees take an alcohol breath test? City employees must take an alcohol breath test within 8 hours of involvement of an accident or within 32 hours for a drug test to prove that an illegal substance did not contribute to the accident.
We will now turn our attention to the drug use and drug policy portion of our training. Drug abuse and drug addiction is a complex disease that is affected by a person's genetics and biology, their environment, and their stage of life when their drug habit develops. Because drugs can affect the way the brain functions, quitting can be very difficult. Some of the 5 drugs we will be discussing have similar psychological and physiological effects. In addition to changes in body chemistry, people addicted to certain drugs usually develop a physical dependence on that drug. Always remember that employees performing safety-sensitive functions in the transportation industry are responsible for providing a safe work environment for your coworkers and the traveling public. As a part of this training, we will be discussing in detail 5 drugs: amphetamines, cannabinoids, cocaine, opiates, and phencyclidine. First, let's discuss amphetamines, which is a central nervous system stimulant. Some common names for amphetamines are uppers, speed, crystal meth, methamphetamines, and ice. The short-term effects and consequences of amphetamines are alertness, wakefulness, an elevated mood, increased initiative and self-confidence, a heightened ability to concentrate, elation and euphoria, dry mouth and sweating. The long-term effects and consequences of amphetamine are an increased tolerance, which requires the user to take larger doses. This results in headaches, palpitations, dizziness, agitation, confusion, apprehension, delirium, fatigue, paranoia, hallucinations, panic states, suicidal and homicidal tendencies. Next, we will talk about cocaine. Cocaine is a central nervous system stimulant. Some common names for cocaine include coke, crack, snow, crank. Cocaine is a powerful stimulant made from the leaves of a coca plant. Cocaine can be snorted, which is then absorbed into the bloodstream through the nasal tissues. But cocaine can also be ingested or rubbed into the gums, or dissolved into water and injected with a needle, which then releases the drug directly into the bloodstream, intensifying the effects and substantially increasing the risk for overdose. Cocaine can also be inhaled by heating the cocaine crystal to produce vapors that are then inhaled into the lungs. This form of cocaine is called crack, which refers to the crackling sound of the rock as it is heated. When a person uses cocaine, the brain is flooded with dopamine. Dopamine is a transmitter present in regions of the brain that regulate movement, emotion, motivation, and feelings of pleasure. Cocaine prevents dopamine from being reabsorbed by the body. Instead, it accumulates in the brain and causes a euphoria experienced immediately after taking cocaine. Cocaine has both short-term and long-term effects on those who use it that affect both their personal and private lives. After a single dose, the effects of cocaine take effect almost immediately and then disappear within a few minutes to an hour. Short and long-term use of cocaine can lead to adverse effects. All of these will limit the drug user's effectiveness in the workplace and may pose a real danger to the traveling public. The short-term effects and consequences of cocaine usage include a 20-minute high, which produces a sense of power, euphoria, and control. The magnified effect, which increases heart rate, respiratory rate, and blood pressure. And a strong urge to take the drug again. Long-term effects and consequences of cocaine usage include nervousness, excitability, agitation, paranoia, insomnia, depression, feelings of inadequacy, memory disturbance, and impotence. In large doses, cocaine causes confusion, paranoia, hallucinations, impulsive behavior, cardiovascular collapse, and death.
Commonly would be amphetamines and cocaine. Methamphetamine specifically is what I think most people would be know that term anyway, and then cocaine, crack cocaine, powder cocaine. It's all under the same stimulant category. The duration of effects on cocaine could be 5 to 90 minutes. Methamphetamines could be up to 12 hours. You have things like Adderall and Ritalin that are also considered stimulants. And the overuse or the overmedication of Ritalin or Adderall could also produce ill effects on the body. So methamphetamine could be up to 12 hours. You could see symptoms of that and signs of that. Cocaine could go into effect within 5 minutes up to, or the duration could be 5 to 90 minutes. The effects of it could be instant. If they were snorting cocaine, as soon as they snort it, they would automatically feel the rush. And that could last, again, 5 to 90 minutes. Cocaine is generally a pretty short-lived high, whereas methamphetamine is a longer, like I said, up to 12 hours. You can see dry mouth is one, exaggerated reflexes, grinding of the teeth known as bruxism, a runny nose, if they're talkative, body tremors are all kind of the common signs. Also dilated pupils, if the black part of their eye is blown out, as we like to say, that could also be a sign of a stimulant use as well. If it's daylight hours and their pupils really big, that's not common, that's not what it's supposed to do. Agitation and hallucinations both would be overdose signs of a stimulant.
Next, we will discuss cannabinoids. Cannabinoids are a central nervous system depressant. Common names include marijuana, pot, grass, weed, Mary Jane, and blunts. Marijuana includes the dried leaves, stems, and flowers of the cannabis plant. It can be green, brown, or gray. Other marijuana products include hash and extracts. Hash is cannabis resin that is dried and pressed into bars, sticks, or balls, then smoked. Extracts are resins from the marijuana plant that are rich in THC. Use of these extracts is called dabbing. Extracts can be liquid hash oil, a soft solid butter, or a hard solid shatter. Extracts deliver a strong concentration of THC into the body. The most common use of marijuana is through inhalation in the form of hash. The high that a user experiences comes from THC and leads to a mind-altering effect. The naturally occurring neurotransmitter anandamide binds to the THC receptors already in the brain, causing similar effects in THC. When marijuana is used and THC is inhaled, the drug passes from the lung into the bloodstream. The blood then travels to the brain and other organs. THC affects parts of the brain that are responsible for memory, coordination, perception, and judgment. When inhaled, THC enters the bloodstream and causes these effects within minutes. The high usually peaks within the first 30 minutes and lasts for a few hours, although higher doses and higher potency can cause a longer lasting effect. Though users might enjoy a temporary heightened sense of pleasure, there are also many undesirable short and long-term effects of marijuana use. The short-term effects of marijuana are relaxation and a general feeling of well-being, mild perceptual and sensory distortions, reduced attention span, spontaneous laughter, and impaired short-term memory, cognitive, and motor functions. Long-term effects and consequences of marijuana use in large doses produce impaired judgment, slowed reaction time, impaired motor function, mental confusion, mild hallucinations, psychological dependence, and impaired mental functions. Dependence upon marijuana is a physiological state that can occur with regular drug use and results in withdrawal symptoms when drug use is abruptly discontinued. Addiction is a chronic, relapsing brain disease that is characterized by compulsive drug seeking and use, despite harmful consequences. It is possible to be dependent upon marijuana without being addicted. Work-related impacts of marijuana use may include low motivation, difficulty learning new skills and recalling learned ones, low productivity, and increased risk of injury or accidents.
Marijuana can be used in several different ways. I think the most common way that people would think of would be to smoke marijuana. These days, there have been advancements, I guess you would say, in the way to ingest marijuana. Now there's a form of edibles, I think, that has been around for a while as well as they are now extracting the oils from marijuana with their smoking through vape pens and things of that nature. Generally with the oils and waxes, they have a higher THC concentration, which means that they can exhibit a higher doses, and they may be a little more where we were seeing originally with some of the synthetic marijuana use, which was a little over the top behavior. We would see some of that just because of the higher THC use. Otherwise, it's going to be the same as what people have seen for years of just more relaxed, more laid back, can't concentrate very well, and that sort of behavior would be still similar for all uses of marijuana. Excitedness, you could see a lack of pain, feeling pain compliance, things that an officer may use to get somebody into custody may not work as well. You may see someone take even more risk, and it's a little over the top behavior that you would not expect it to be in marijuana. You may associate that with some other drug like a PCP or something like that. Marijuana, which is straight marijuana use, if they're smoking leafy marijuana, it could be 3 to 5 hours. It could stay in their system up to 12 hours or longer. With the higher concentration, it's going to be about the same. It's just going to hit them harder. When it does get there, it's going to be a more pronounced effect. You can, but it's not what what you would think as an overdose would be. It's not going to be, most of the time when people think overdose, they maybe think along the lines of like a heroin overdose, something like that, which would be pretty much instant death. A marijuana overdose may just be overdosing signs. They may become very sick. Excessive vomiting, anxiety, panic attacks, things like that would be a symptom of a marijuana overdose.
Next, we will talk about opiates. Opiates are a central nervous system depressant. Some of the common names for opiates are heroin, Dilaudid, morphine, opium, codeine, Demerol, Darvon, Vicodin, Percocets, Oxycontin. Opioids are a category of natural substances derived from the opium plant. Opioids are extracted from opium poppies and is a combination of the chemical compound of morphine and codeine. The term opioid is used to define synthetic and non-synthetic, and those naturally found in the opium poppy plant. These compounds are used for medical purposes to induce sleep and reduce pain. Opioids can act on many different parts of the brain and in turn affect your body in different ways. When the drug interacts with the brainstem, it can slow breathing, stop coughing, and reduce pain. When opioids affect the spinal cord, they can decrease pain, even after serious injury. Depending on how the drug is taken, the effects can be intensified, making the drug more dangerous. In the last 10 years, there has been a spike in the number of overdoses and deaths due to opioid excessive use and addiction. Short-term effects and consequences of opioids include mental cloudiness, general slowness, slowed reactions, euphoria, suppression of pain, feeling of well-being, dreamy dozing state, increased activity in some, and many experience nausea, vomiting, and reduced appetite. Long-term effects and consequences. Increased tolerance leads to larger doses and decreased sensitivity to pain. Impaired ability to concentrate. Lack of drug produces vomiting, fever, and cold chills. High doses result in deep sleep, coma, or death.
Opiates are anything from heroin would be probably the biggest illegal drug of opiates, but also anything that's a pain pill, painkillers are in the opiate family. So your hydrocodones, your oxycodones, morphine, all those things are in the opiate family as well. I think the most common effect I would see would be the pupil size. That's the first thing I would look at. That would be the first thing that would draw my attention, is constricted pupils. Opiates are the only drug that causes constricted pupils. No other drug causes that. So if you see somebody in a low light situation or dark time, night hours, and they have pinpoint pupils, that's a just great indicator that they're in the influence of an opiate of some sort. Some of the other things you may see is depressed reflexes, droopy eyelids, being drowsy, facial itching, nausea, slow raspy speech, and another really common one we see is what we call being on the nod, where it seems like they are falling asleep while they're talking to you. You can call their name out, they may perk right back up and immediately go back like they're going to go to sleep, and that's called being on the nod. Heroin could be up to 4 to 6 hours. Something like methadone could be up to 24 hours, and the other ones could just vary. If you get somebody who's addicted to pain pills, that could vary depending on how much they're using and things like that. Unfortunately, that's a big reason why we have a heroin problem today is the addiction to pain pills. So the signs of overdose could be cold, clammy skin, a coma, convulsions, shallow breathing, and I think on the far end of the spectrum there too, we see in a heroin overdose is they have no pulse. They basically die, and it takes resuscitation of some sort, like we're using Narcan or something like that, to revive them. But they have no pulse at that point.
Lastly, we will discuss phencyclidine. Phencyclidine is a hallucinogenic drug and has common names of PCP and angel dust. PCP is a white crystalline powder and can be quickly dissolved in water or alcohol. PCP can also be found in capsule or tablet form. PCP causes a person to be disconnected from reality and hallucinate. Typically, PCP users can snort, inject, or ingest this drug. A person can use PCP intravenously by dissolving PCP in water and injecting the drug with a needle, which releases the drug directly into the bloodstream. These effects can harm the worker, co-worker, and put the public in general at risk. Short-term effects and consequences of taking PCP include hallucinations, which separate the user from reality, unpredictable reactions, which include euphoria, extreme unhappiness or pain, agitation, or aggression. Physical symptoms include drooling, blank stare, staggered gait, and violent behavior. Long-term effects and consequences of taking large doses include all symptoms intensifying and can result in coma or death.
So PCP, phencyclidine is the name for it. That is where you may see that in people is very strange behavior. They would have a blank stare, like they're just a 1,000-yard stare. There may be confusion. They may have repetitive behavior in things that they say or do. They could be disoriented. They could be violent, sweating, warm to the touch, slow, slurred speech. All are signs of someone under the influence of PCP. Historically, through law enforcement, where we see people on PCP, is they have a extremely high pain threshold, and they may not feel pain at all. And that's where you've seen people who have been taking numerous officers to get somebody into custody who's under the influence of PCP. There's been reports of in other places where people have been shot numerous times on PCP and act like they didn't get shot at all. So the effects on the body is almost an out-of-body effect on them where they don't feel anything. So the onset of effects for PCP could be 1 to 5 minutes. It could peak, it's going to peak in about 15 to 30 minutes, but they could have a lasting effect for 4 to 6 hours. Deep coma, convulsions, and seizures would be signs of an overdose on PCP.
The detection period until clean screen for the most common drugs are alcohol, 1 hour per 3/4 ounce of pure alcohol, amphetamines 1 to 2 days, barbiturates 1 to 2 days, benzodiazepines 3 to 5 days, cannabinoids for a single use 2 days, several times a week 2 weeks, daily 3 to 6 weeks. Cocaine, occasional use 2 to 4 days, chronic heavy use 1 to 3 weeks. Opiates, morphine, codeine, heroin 1 to 2 days. Bencyclidine 2 days, 2 weeks. Propoxyphene 6 hours, 2 days.
Now, let's examine why drug addiction is so difficult to overcome.
A lot of us have an idea in our heads about what a person addicted to drugs looks like, but the truth is, anyone can become addicted to drugs. Addiction is when you feel a strong urge to keep taking a drug, even if it is causing harm. To stop, ask for help. Drug addiction doesn't depend on your income, your job, your age, race, or color. Addiction is a disease of the brain, and it can happen to anyone. You probably already know that you can become addicted to tobacco, alcohol, and illegal drugs. But even prescription drugs can be addictive when not taken as directed or when you take medication not prescribed for you. There are scientists who study drug abuse. Their research has taught us a lot about what makes you more likely to become addicted to drugs. Things like having family members who have had a drug problem, starting drugs at a young age, having mental health problems like depression, or hanging around other people who use drugs, all put you at risk. But you do not become addicted if you don't take drugs. If you or someone you love has a problem, get help. And if you do become addicted, you can be treated and you can recover. Find drug treatment near you. Call 1-800-662-HELP. Want to learn more? Find easy-to-read drug facts at www.easyread.drugabuse.gov. Ever hear someone with a drug problem talk about quitting? And then they try to quit on their own with no help. They tell their friends they've given up drugs forever. It usually doesn't work. Eventually they slip and start using again. Why are drugs so hard to quit? Because addiction is a brain disease. Addiction is when you feel a strong urge to keep taking a drug even if it is causing harm. To stop, ask for help. Your brain is like a control tower. It sends out signals that direct your actions and choices. When you take drugs, the chemical signals in your brain change. This affects your choices, your actions, and even the way you feel. The part of your brain that lets you feel pleasure can be changed by drugs. Normally, this pleasure center is active when you eat, fall in love, or experience something else you enjoy. After a while, the drug becomes more important. When someone takes a drug, they first feel a rush or a high. But over time, the high is not as strong, and they need the drug to keep from feeling bad. This is what happens when you are addicted. But you don't have to stay that way. Quitting drugs is hard, but it can be done. If you or someone you love has a problem, get help. Find drug treatment near you. Call 1-800-662-HELP. Want to learn more? find easy-to-read drug facts at www.easyread.drugabuse.gov.
Welcome back. Now it's time for another review. Identify 3 common names for opiates. Common names for opiates include heroin, Dilaudid, morphine, opium, codeine, Demerol, Darvon, Vicodin, Percocet, and Oxycontin. True or false? One of the short-term effects of cocaine is a relaxed mood or feeling. False. Cocaine produces a 20-minute high, which produces a sense of power, euphoria, and control. Crack produces a magnified effect on the heart rate, as well as increasing your respiratory rate and blood pressure. It also creates a strong urge to take the drug again. What's another name for phencyclidine? PCP or angel dust. If a person uses marijuana daily, how long would it take to have it cleaned from their system? Three to 6 weeks. True or false? Short-term and long-term use of cocaine can lead to adverse effects. True. True or false? Occasional use of marijuana does not affect work-related behavior. False. The impact of marijuana use may include low motivation, difficulty learning new skills and remembering learned ones, low productivity, and increased risk of injury or accidents. True or false? Amphetamines are a synthetic stimulant that excite the central nervous system. True. What kinds of prescriptions have led to widespread dependence? Opioids. Opioids have a very high addiction rate. Potential factors that lead to opioid dependence and addiction include which of the following? A. Having overlapped opioid prescriptions from different providers. B. Taking a high daily dose of a prescription. C. Having a history of alcohol or other substance dependence. D. Having a history of mental illness. And E. Sleeping 8 hours a day. The answer is A, B, C, and D.
The city offers an Employee Assistance Program, or EAP, that provides counseling assistance for various individual and family problems, including drug and alcohol addiction. The EAP is through the Health Insurance Program, Section 1006, Health Benefits, and Section 1032, Employee Assistance Program. Life Services EAP is a city-paid benefit that offers confidential help and services. Examples of the services offered include help with stress, legal issues, financial issues, mediation, and work-life services. Access to these services are available 24 hours a day by calling 1-800-822-4847. Counseling sessions are available through Life Services EAP, with employees receiving up to 6 sessions per person per episode each year. These sessions are provided by local licensed counselors. Also, employees will receive live answers through this 1-800 number 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Routine appointments are made available within 2 working days, and emergencies are handled immediately.
Hi, my name's Yvonne Smith, and I'm with your EAP program, Employee Assistance Program. And I wanted to talk with you all a bit about the EAP program and just tell you some highlights about it. Maybe these are reminders for you, but I wanted to go over some key aspects about the Employee Assistance Program. So what I wanted to start with is explaining confidentiality, because that is one of the hallmarks and most important aspects of the EAP program. If you ever reached out to us and if you ever meet with one of our counselors, you can be assured that what you talk about with that counselor will stay between you and your counselor. Only exceptions would be threats of wanting to hurt yourself or someone else, or instances of abuse. So those are the only exceptions. I wanted to let you know too, there's no cost to you to use this program. It's a company paid for benefit, so you will not be charged. It's separate from insurance, so there's no copay, no deductible. And also, it's not only available to you, but also to your family members and dependents. That would be anyone that you would claim on your taxes. They're eligible for this program as well. So what kind of issues do we deal with? It would be life issues. That could be depression, anxiety, it could be general stress, grief and loss, work stressors. It could be the stress of caretaking an elderly parent. So really, it's for anything and everything that life can sometimes throw at us. And any counselor you meet with is going to be licensed and also have a master's degree and at least 3 years of experience. And if you ever needed to use the program, you would call the number on the screen, or you could also go to our website and ask to talk with the counselor. And a new feature we have now is you can request an appointment through our website portal. You just need to create an account. This number is available to you 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So anytime you need to speak with a counselor, you will be able to get access to a counselor quickly. So other aspects of the program, an assessment is done when you meet with the counselor, and we provide short-term counseling, and for you guys that would be up to 6 sessions with a counselor, and it's very individualized, so it's what you feel like you need. We have some folks that come once or twice, and some people like to use their full benefit, the 6 sessions. Either way is perfectly fine. And then also, service we provide is, if needed, we give community referrals. That could be things like support groups, it could be things like AA, Alcoholics Anonymous. It's really resources that we feel like would tie in with your issue to help with resolving it. And also, the benefit includes our website. And I just want to mention there's a lot of information on our website. So I hope you visit it. If nothing else, just for a quick overview, it's basically information on anything related to health and wellness. So mental and emotional wellness, physical, there's actually a ton of things. So why do people call the EAP? I mentioned some of the issues, but also I didn't mention for marital and family counseling, we do quite a bit of that. That's a real common one. Certainly for substance abuse and also other addictions. It's not just substances. Addictions can be spending, it could be food, it could be anything really. It can become an addiction, and that's the kind of issue that we deal with. So just to summarize, your Employee Assistance Program is here to help you with any life issue. It could be family related, work related, substance abuse, grief and loss. Don't hesitate to call us. You can call us 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and we can be reached at 800-822-4847, and it is confidential and at no cost to you. Thank you.
As a valued employee, you also have responsibilities. You are responsible for reading and understanding your employee handbook, understanding any federal or state laws which apply to your job classification concerning drugs or alcohol in the workplace, and protecting your workplace from the effects of substance abuse by not becoming part of the problem. Be a part of the solution. Learn about the dangers of drug and alcohol abuse. Make a commitment to not abuse substances. Avoid illegal drugs at all costs, and if you drink, do so moderately and responsibly. If you see the signs at work of substance abuse, tell a supervisor. And if you recognize symptoms in yourself of substance abuse, get help. Remember, you don't have to fight this problem alone.